Okay. Okay, cool.
We were on a roll before, but trust me, we haven't even begun.
Okay, that's good.
Well, everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of your Storybox podcast. Today, I'm delighted to welcome somebody whose message is going to help many people out there. I kid you not, she's helped me. She's helped countless others during COVID, during everything, her whole message, and you'll soon see why. But her name is Serena Poon. Now, Serena is a nutritional energy practitioner, fusing her expertise as a celebrity chef, nutritionist, and Reiki master to her A-list clientele. Some of these people include the legendary Jerry Bruckheimer, if I can say his name correctly. I was trying to pronounce it before. And Bruckheimer, there it is. Sean P, Diddy, Combs, and Kerry Washington, just to name a few of the big profiles that you've cooked for, which is incredible. Serena's Culinary Alchemy is the practice of combining intuitive energetic techniques with guidance and education on functional and spiritual nutrition, integrating how food affects our bodies on a physiological level, as well as how it affects the energetic body. Serena's goal is to optimize and heal the physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being of her clients. She's a certified Reiki master and so much more. I could go on and on and on. But Serena, welcome so much to the Storybox podcast today.
Hi, thank you so much, Jay, for having me. It's like I'm already having so much fun.
So am I.
So much.
No, my absolute pleasure to have you here. We were talking just off, like before recording, everything that you're doing in the world in terms of COVID. You actually got COVID. There were some big words that I mentioned in the introduction there that I kind of struggled with. So I appreciate you having the patience with me. But
of course.
before we dive into your backstory and how you got started doing all this and all the other great stuff that you're doing, I normally start off all my interviews with one particular question. And this one is, what does success look like to you?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Actually, I've heard it asked a couple of times with different people, and I don't always think about it, but I think for me, success is having, peace within yourself. I think it's being able to be very, very present with where you are, what you're doing, and knowing that you're giving value to those around you. I mean, that for me, it sounds super simple, but that for me is success. To know that what I'm doing is giving value to others, to the world, and just being really at peace with myself, because that to me checks off a list of a lot of things. That means I am healthy within my body and my mind. I'm in alignment. My soul is in alignment. My relationships are all balanced. And so, so I think, for me, success is truly, giving value, bringing value, and being at peace.
Speaking about peace, over your years, have you found it difficult to find inner peace?
Have I found it difficult finding peace?
Finding inner peace?
I would say that in the moments, clearly throughout my journey that I didn't have it, it was difficult. I mean, it was painful, when you're in those dark places. But what I realized once I was on the other side of it is that it's like the doorway. When you are in those most difficult moments, that is really when you do find peace. That's when you find surrender. That's when the whole world kind of opens up and you see everything that is right in front of you that you haven't seen. So yes, to answer your question, like, absolutely, it was difficult to find that peace. And I think that because life is a journey, I still have moments where I'm not totally at peace, and I have to check in with myself, because it's like, well, why am I not at peace right now? What's happening? Where am I putting my energy that's not in a peaceful place? Where am I not receiving, the love and the gratitude and the abundance around me, because that's usually kind of what happens is like your viewpoint, kind of splits and you're not honed in on that. So yes, I would say it has, but that's kind of the beauty of the journey, and that's how you get there.
What would you say to a young person, or just anyone really right now, that is actually struggling in their own life to sort of, they're working towards finding their own sense of inner peace, really? What would you
Mhm.
say to someone that is actually struggling to find it?
I would say, first of all, I would say that there's a quote that I don't want to say that I live by, but it's something that I'm constantly reminding myself of. And well, there's two quotes, but the first is that no one is you, and that is your power. So when you're in that moment, you're not at peace. You don't feel like you're successful. You don't feel like you know what you're doing. You feel like you're lost. You don't feel empowered. You don't feel that you make a difference. You don't feel that you're special. You don't feel like you can even make a difference. And so it's so important to like get back to you and to center yourself and to realize you actually have all the power within you to do everything that you want in your life. And that everything can feel so broad and overwhelming. You don't know how to do it, but it's just remembering that it starts with that first thought and belief that you can, that you have this special magic. We each do. And that's because there's no one that is you. And that magic is really what kind of helps your mind and your body and your heart kind of get back into a place of being centered, being grounded, and just to know that the outcome is going to be what you want it to be. And that kind of helps drive you forward. And then the other quote that I constantly read, and that's just something that kind of, looking back at my life and the different obstacles, and even in the year of COVID, it was just that opportunities come from obstacles. I have so many variations of it, like obstacles are where opportunities are found. I mean, but that's really what it is. And again, it's really about looking past almost what's right in front of you to see what's actually right in front of you. So those are the two. So just a reminder, that you're so powerful. You know what to do. Just like sit, connect with yourself, know that your magic is the only one out there. And then take the next step.
Mhm. I want to sort of second what you were saying there,
Mhm.
because I also think we live in such a busy uh, world that we kind of forget to turn off. We forget to switch everything off. There's so much information hitting a lot of people, and that kind of, if it's negative information, it's hitting our well-being, our mindset, and
Mhm.
feel less than what we should be feeling. We, we
Mhm.
are we are human beings created with a purpose. I 100% believe that.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, that negative noise impacts a lot of people in how they feel in life. And I always say that if you really want inner peace, you've got to
Mhm.
learn to be patient first. And
Yeah.
patience is a very difficult lesson learned daily. And
Yeah.
because of that noise, because of that negativity, oftentimes we become impatient, and therefore we become restless, and therefore we don't have inner peace. We can't
Mhm.
sit still for more than 5 seconds. And
Yeah.
then therefore that also impacts how we act towards other people, our relationships. There's a whole aspect to it. And I love your reminder quotes. Those were beautiful, beautiful reminders. So thank you so
Thank
much for sharing those.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for letting me share. Great
No,
question.
it's my pleasure, because I think finding inner peace is an important thing for overall health and wellness. So I appreciate you actually bringing that up. Um, you mentioned for a moment there that you had dark times, and
Yeah.
I want to sort of go into that for a moment and ask you, what were those dark times? What brought them on for you?
Well, there were a few of them for sure. One of the ones, well, I would say that, and I can't say it's necessarily a dark time. It is, but it wasn't like a dark internal time when our daddy got sick, and he had cancer and he suffered. And he passed. And then 2 months later, our mom got sick with cancer also. And they were both very young. They were in their 40s. So it was a dark time externally. But it wasn't, and it was a painful time internally. But not quite yet dark, because I don't think that I had taken in all the externals and made it my problem or myself yet. And I think that happens as we experience different things throughout life. And I think that's why sometimes those super dark times come when we're slightly older, right? Because now you're internalizing everything and you realize it's all your fault, or your life is a mess, or, so, so that was, I would say, a dark time, but from really internal, so dark, wanting to not even live, came after he passed, because it was not processing all of that trauma, and it was not processing. And, I came from that, and I thought, and that's part of the reason why I've been so passionate about health and helping other people heal and live their best life and help take care of the people that they love, is from that. But I thought it was my responsibility, in a different way than I feel like a responsibility to sharing value now. I felt like I had to just make sure everyone was healthy and happy, and that would be okay. And then that meant life was going to be okay. But in doing that, I wasn't taking care of myself. So, my priorities were completely off, but thinking that self-sacrifice was worth, that was a minor thing that I could do, but that sacrifice meant these people are going to be okay. And it was just all not in alignment for me. And that was at that age, that was my perspective. Those were the resources that I had. So that ended up leading to that very dark time, because I'm not taking care of myself at all. I'm not making my own health or mental health a priority. And you can only take care of people as much as they take care of themselves, and so, and you burn out. And so I got to, and because these are layers of behavior that's not empowering, it starts to have an effect, not just on your mental health, but then on your physical health. So I got to a place where I was already not well, because I had a surgery and my body didn't respond well to it. And then those layers of inflammation, and it just basically started to just eat away that tissue inside. So I had to have another surgery to remove all of that. And from that, I got MRSA, which made me very, very sick. And that was the beginning of a journey of 8 surgeries, that I had to have, and just constantly trying to mitigate those symptoms. And so I would say that not that the whole 8 years was dark, but there were dark moments that came from that, because I was so sick, feeling like I was being punished. And after my 4th surgery, I had a hematoma 12 days post-op. I was bleeding internally, and I had lost, nearly 2 liters of blood, and I almost died. And that really dark time came after I had some amazing clients. I called them. They knew the medical director at Cedars. They came, they saved my life. But the recovery process from that, where I was so weak. I had lost so much blood, and I wasn't able to work as a chef. And it was just, this was a 4th surgery after 3 surgeries that were not successful, after having done everything that I needed to do nutrition wise and exercise wise to stay healthy, and deal with this MRSA, and yet still never feeling fully there, but being in the health, being a wellness, practitioner, is just also feeling like I'm not in alignment with what I'm teaching. I got to a really dark place. I was miserable health-wise. I still had this infection. Here I am now. There's so much trauma and disruption to my body. I was so weak, I could barely move. I refused to see anybody because I think the best word to use would be like deformed. Like I felt like I looked deformed from the damage, from the bleeding internally. It stretched my skin. Just all of this had happened. And I was in a super dark place, like where you contemplate whether or not you deserve to live. Like, what value do you bring? Like, now my purpose was to cook healthy food, and now I couldn't even cook and do that for, and just feeling that I had also failed my father, because I took on this responsibility that I was supposed to take care of my family after he passed. Here, my mom was still here, my grandmother was still here, my sister was still here. And I was just like, I failed, like I failed on so many levels. Like my own health isn't, super intact. And so it was a really dark time. And I was not healthy on any level, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I had only just sort of begun my journey a little bit, where, after both my parents had cancer, and our mom recovered, obviously, our dad didn't. And that's just so much. And not realizing it was PTSD at the time to go through that, because feeling like that's something that soldiers have, and, wasn't worthy of labeling that as a trauma. I had spoken to some therapists for a short period of time to try and, navigate that journey and that healing process. And it wasn't for me. So I ended up talking to a couple different healers that were referred to me by dear friends whose family had seen them. And that was when I started my journey into healing work, which eventually led to me taking Reiki. But that was a super dark time. And I've had a couple since that were also tough, but that was probably one of the hardest, because I thought I was going to die. I didn't think I was going to live from that experience. It was terrifying. And then I really didn't have a lot of support, from my family. I didn't really have a lot of support. So, but it was necessary, because it exercised a muscle in me that is in all of us, that like internal strength that we all have, that like you don't tap into until you're confronted with a situation that you have to. And so it was from there that I started my nutritional consulting practice, that ended up yielding me a more profitable year at the end of that year than the years before. And I couldn't even use, the left upper side of my body for 6 months. So again, what we talked about earlier and about inner peace in dark times, it was that darkest of times that led me into, a period in the next phase that was so much more light and peace. But again, chapters, right? You keep hitting them as you journey through life. You think it's the last one, but it's not.
What a story. Wow. And are you completely healed of MRSA right now?
Yes, it took 8 surgeries. It did take 8 surgeries. It took a lot of holistic healing. It took energy work. But I think because it was just in me, and for so long, it had burrowed itself, into this little pocket inside my chest. And so I also don't think I had the right team for the first several. And, after 6 surgeries, when it flared up again and I had to go to the ER, I was so sick. I was able to put together a team of incredible doctors, and an infectious disease doctor, the head over at UCLA, and these incredible doctors who worked collectively as a team to help find resolution to that. So I'm really blessed, but that's been gone, although they tell me, just be careful, once it's happened, like it can happen again. I've been great since my last surgery.
I'm glad to hear that. For those people that actually don't know what MRSA is, are you able to explain? Because it sounds pretty.
Oh yes, so it's a deadly staph infection, and so and it's also resistant to almost all the antibiotics, except for maybe a few of them, like 2 or 3 of them. And it happens, when your immune system is weak, usually because we have staph all over our body. It's very, very common. We have it in our hair and our skin. It's normal. But this particular strain is a very deadly staph strain, and it can get inside a cut, and it can really be very problematic. So it happens, doesn't happen. And ironically, it happens, it can happen a lot coming out of surgery. And that's where I got it, was coming out of a surgery. But that's been my journey. But what's the good thing from that is I have had a lot of clients who have had MRSA, and I know exactly what to do and to help them nip that in the bud, without having to have 8 surgeries. So, with each part of your journey, with each lesson, it becomes a teaching tool. So,
and your second quote was the obstacles equal the opportunity. So definitely did that.
Oh, I've one of them. And that's how you have to look at it. Because if you don't look at obstacles as places where there are hidden opportunities, if you don't sit there and think there's opportunities in the obstacles, you won't see them. And, to be very honest, I didn't see opportunities for a really, really long time. Well, not really, but I would say for the first half of my journey, because you're very focused on like the pain, and it's very easy to be in a victim state, and that's not empowering. When you're in a victim state, you're not resourceful, and if you're looking at something where's the opportunity, and where's the lesson, what can I learn? And if you take that a step further, and if you look at it like, what can I learn so I can teach and help someone else? Wow, you'll see so much more. It's not about you, and it's about the world. It is about the collective. You will see so much more when you look at that pain point, when you look at that problem, that challenge, and you're like, what can I learn here that I can teach someone else, that I can share with someone else that's going to help them? You'll start seeing it.
I wish I had that same perspective on life when I was going through all the stuff that I was going through as well, because I'm only 24 and my journey has been a literal roller coaster ride.
Wow.
And it seems like for me, it had been more downs than actual ups. And a lot of people know sort of some of the things that I went through with my health. It wasn't until towards the end of 2019, that's when I realized everything that you're saying. The challenges, I say it, let challenges serve you, not the other way around.
Yeah.
When we serve challenges, then we're just taking away our own sense of self and worth, and we're giving it over to the challenge, and we're saying, I'm worthless now because I've been through a challenge. I'm not going to be good at anything. I'm not going to get over it. So what's the point? And a lot of people give up, and I call it that sink or swim moment. So a lot of people, they choose to drown almost, like they've given up. Don't. Just it's okay to sink. Sinking is where you're going to learn. And that's how you're going to build up the strength to swim and to swim further and become better as a human being.
You're so right. And if you think about when you're in that water, right, and you're panicking, you're flailing, you're trying to get back up, if you do just like stop for a second and you let your body just sink a little bit, that's when those automatic features kick in. That's when your body like knows, oh, I need to kick and go up. Oh, I need to just hold my breath and I'll get to like, you know what you need to do, internally we know. And you've been through an extraordinary journey. And even though you say you wish you had known that, but it's good that you didn't, because you may not be where you are today in your journey had you known that before, right? So I think we all say, oh, we wish, but you may not have realized it had you not been through the whole roller coaster of what you had been through.
100%. And I also say this, people might believe it, they might not, but I often say to people, God brings us to exactly where we need to be. It might not exactly be where we want to be,
Right.
We are always exactly where we need to be, despite the challenges, despite the good times, despite the bad times, doesn't matter. We are exactly where he needs us to be in that particular moment. And going back full circle here towards the inner peace and the patience, we just need to look at having a little bit more patience and asking, whether you believe in God or not, asking God, okay, what are you trying to teach me here? And
Yeah.
having that perspective rather than, oh, woe is me. Why are you doing this to me? That
Mm.
just disrupts the inner peace.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I think that really focusing on like, what can I learn and what can I teach? Um, so often, like when people get kind of consumed in that, like, why me, or that victim state, it's because they're just focused on themselves. When you can take the focus off of yourself, your perspective changes. You have better optics. You can see a little bit further instead of just right here. You're not looking at something that's just an inch away from your face. You can't see here. Your eyes can't even focus when your hand is like touching your nose. But if you can put, if you can shift and put that out further, and you can focus when your hand is like, a foot away from your face, and even more so, then you can see more and further, and then you see what's around, and you just have all these just all these other opportunities and visions, and just teachings and learnings and layers all become very, very visible. So
100%. You
mhm.
mentioned that you had, like during this stage, you had the beginnings of your spiritual journey. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, what is that for you? What does it look like?
So, I had mentioned that I had tried talking to therapists, after our daddy passed, and then our mom got sick, and it was a really tough time, obviously. And it didn't resonate for me entirely. And I'm not saying that it's not something that is helpful or that works. It absolutely does. But I found myself making these like 911 calls, to my therapist, and it doesn't really work. And I have been, I'm an empath. And so throughout the journey of life, there's always been certain things that I have felt. And as an empath, if you're not someone that consciously and mindfully, creates sort of a protective layer around yourself, just like a little bubble that knows to discern what's yours, meaning what's your feelings, your energy, and what's someone else's, you take on a lot. And I really had no awareness of this for a really long time. And I was taking it just like a sponge, soaking in so much of other external energies and feelings, even other people's feelings and emotions. I felt the pain. And so when I first talked to a healer, it was one of my best friends, her family spoke, and they were able to see this healer in real life. I mean, in person, because they all lived in the same city. She referred me to her, and just said, she's amazing. My family, has been working with her for years. And I started talking to this woman, Noelle, and she was just, and interestingly enough, she's sort of very like straightforward, like what I would imagine like a calculus teacher would be. It wasn't that she was very like, she didn't sound like a grandma with cookies. She was just kind of very like, this is what's going on energetically. And I would talk to her, and I would say that I treated my talks with her like 911 calls, which when you're not in a good place, they come and go. They're usually when that anxiety happens, panic. And when this thing happened with my surgeries, I committed, because I realized, and this is really when I started to kind of think about culinary alchemy and energy work into the whole process, because I said, okay, I eat all the right things. I know exactly what to put in my body nutritionally to get the results that I want the body to have. I know how to work out, and I know what exercises to do. I'm dabbling, I wasn't full into like mindset or meditation, but I'm dabbling in that. So I know that, but I wasn't committed to my spiritual practice or a spiritual practice at all, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to call her every 3 weeks, every 3 to 4 weeks, no matter what is going on. And that's going to be my commitment. So I started doing that. And just the way energy works, there is there is a knowing that comes with doing intuitive energy work. And there's an extra layer of healing and also understanding and teaching that can happen in that process that I didn't find in traditional, say, therapy work. And so that was kind of the beginning of my journey. And once I made that commitment to just focus in, committing not just to myself, but just committing to life, because I felt like I had a purpose. And so we started doing that, and, we would have these sessions, and it was just over the phone, because she lives in New Mexico. So it was over the phone, and she would kind of give me an assessment of what's going on with my chakras, my energy centers, and just all the different things. We'd work on it. And after about 8 months, she said, "Okay, I think you're ready." And I was like, "Okay, what do you mean?" Because for the last few months, she's, "Oh, I'm so happy. There's weight and this," and I didn't really understand what she was talking about, but I said, "Okay, if you're happy, I'm happy." And so she said, "I really I want to teach you what I do," because she was approaching her 70s, and she just felt like she's ascending, and she wanted to be able to have an apprentice or teach other, have a student or two, an apprentice, so that she could teach them what she does and pass along, clients as needed, because she felt like her ascension process had started and could happen at any time. So at first I thought she was crazy, because I was like, "What? You're my master. Like, I can't do what you do." I feel like it almost takes away from what you do if you think I can do it, right? Self-worth, right? And so it took 4 months. And after 4 months, I decided I would go out there, because she said, "I want you to come out to New Mexico." She lives in Santa Fe. And she said, "I want you to come and stay with me, and I'll teach you." So, and I started talking to a couple other, healers at the same time, because now I'm open to it and just wanting to learn what different people had to share. So after 4 months, I went out there, flew to Albuquerque. She came and picked me up, in her big giant, like, I don't know, Oldsmobile or some like giant car. She's a little old lady. She's so cute. And we drove to Santa Fe, and I stayed with her for a weekend, and she taught me everything that she does, everything, her practice. And it's her own that she kind of just developed, because she didn't have really like a master. She was just called one day. She used to live in Nashville with her husband and her kids. And when she hit like 60, she just got a calling and was told she needed to move to Santa Fe. And she did. And her husband stayed in Nashville, and they maintained their relationship for quite a few years, just like, from a distance. And she committed her life to healing from that point forward in Santa Fe. So she just kind of, everything she did was very intuitive. And when I came back, I was so overwhelmed. I had all these notes, and I had notes and recordings, and I was trying to figure out if I was doing things right or not. And one of my other healers said, "Listen, it's you connect to what, like, you have your own way, you have your own way. Everyone has their own way. Like, you can have methods, and technique, but it's really your own way." So, and I thought, okay, that's good, because I don't think I can be Noelle. But then I realized I needed some structure. So I started to study Reiki, because at least there's like a course, and, it kind of breaks down. There's a history of the way Reiki is taught. And so I started to take Reiki, and I would say that in my practice, I do think that's my way of doing Reiki. And I add in like pranic healing and quantum touch and, different energy modalities that I've learned. I see it's all under Reiki. It's my style, but I think that kind of structure, really helped guide me to do what it is that I do now. So again, I give you these super long answers. Sorry.
No, I love listening. So it's okay. You can give me as many long answers as you want. This is fascinating stuff, because I've never actually spoken to a Reiki master before, or someone that actually does Reiki. So
you got to try it. I think you'll love it.
I'm just very curious about it. Like, how can is it mostly like you using your hands? Like, I'm trying to picture everything that goes on. So what's the healing process like, and how long does it usually take?
So with Reiki, and I personally think with a lot of healing modalities, you're basically channeling energy. So you're channeling like source, universal life energy, source energy. Like you can call it flow, you can call it in so many different words, all the same, in my opinion. Like everything comes from, one great space, one great thing, universe, source, and you're channeling that energy with intention to an area that needs support. So whether that is in a person's physical body, on a place, in a space, to an object, it's really channeling that energy to a person, place, thing, moment, event, whatever, what have you, to receive this light, this love, this source energy. So it can be done. I mean, you are taught distal Reiki in Reiki 2. If you're following, Reiki 1, 2, 3 mastery, but you can do that when you're present in with a person, like in real life. I don't know if that's the right way of using it, but like if you're with a person, and there can be touch. So sometimes there is touch. And then sometimes there doesn't need to be touch. It's really quite preferential, and you kind of go with what feels is needed. So it would be both touch and no touch, but you can also direct and channel that energy distally, which I do quite often. And especially during 2020, I was doing all distal work because we were all separated, we're all quarantined, and people still needed healing. And another beautiful thing from COVID and the pandemic is that people who might not have been open to receiving it distally because they needed the tangible to make the connection and make it, quote, real, now they were open to receiving it distally. And then when they do, then you realize, again, it's a limitation we put on ourselves, right? Because if you think you can only receive when someone is putting their hands on you, then that takes away all the other moments where you might have needed to receive, and someone can do it for you from a distance. So yes, so that's basically what it is. You're just channeling that energy. You as a practitioner, you're a conduit, it's not your energy. It's not your life force. It is source. And you're just channeling that energy towards a person, a place, an object. For that person, you check in to see like where they need alignment, where they need balance or support, and you direct that energy that way. So that's basically what Reiki is. And it essentially is what, many energetic healing modalities are. So I would say, we should do it, at some point.
I'm down for it. I want to see like firsthand. I want to experience this because I do believe in energy, like 100%. Like you can feel it. Like even doing Zoom calls, sometimes when I have a deep and meaningful conversation, you get really deep and emotional. You feel that energy. Like even though we're on a Zoom, a world away, you still feel it. So and even more so in person. I felt like this connection is there's got to be something deeper to it. 100%. Like I'm down for whenever you come to Sydney or whenever I go over there to experience this. But what I'm curious about real quick is what has been the most difficult thing to actually heal that you've experienced with Reiki?
The most difficult thing?
The most difficult, like someone's come to you, they've got a lot of pain and you found it difficult to actually heal them?
Oh, yes. Okay. That's a great question. So what makes the healing most challenging is when that person isn't open to receive. So, I mean, truly, you can heal almost anything. Like, I mean, and I'm making a very broad statement. There may or may not be criticism for it, but that is my belief, that you can truly heal just about anything. And and it may not be from one source, and that's why I do what I do. That's why there's Culinary Alchemy, because there's from different sources. You take tools from different modalities and different practices, but you can heal that pain, you can heal that hurt, you can heal that. So with Reiki, it's really, or I think again, any sort of energetic practice, it's whether or not that person is open to receive, or more challenging, resistant to receiving. So there are people that I've worked with that are there because someone else wanted them to be there, and they're resistant. So it's really about trying to figure out why they're resistant. Are they fearful? Did they have an experience did they have a bad experience that was related to this? Is it something that's ancestral? Is it something in their karmic lineage? Is it something that's just in their history of their soul journey that we kind of have to dive into? And so those would be, and I haven't had a ton, because most people that come to me want the healing, but there's definitely people that are there because someone else wanted them to be there, because they've tried all these other things and it doesn't work, or there's conflict within relationships, and so they're willing to try anything, and so that would be the most challenging. So it can be a physical ailment, or it can just literally be it could be a heart issue. It's just about whether or not that person is truly open, or if they're resistant.
I love how you just explained that. That's cool. Okay, so a couple more questions for you, if you don't mind, because I do want to be respectful of your time.
Oh yeah, no, I'm having fun. This is great.
So in terms of, you've got your Reiki side of things, but you've also got your culinary. You're a chef, and now I've seen some of your food, and it looks so enticing. Where do you find the creativity to come up with such recipes?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I don't even know. I don't think I've been asked that question before. Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends. It depends what it's for. So traditionally, historically, when I decided to go to culinary school, it was really to study the culinary arts, to figure out how I could make something that is designed to be healthy or healing for you taste and look amazing. And that came from, my experience with my parents, because most of the time, and now it's a different world now, which I'm so grateful for, that it's evolving and people understand how important food is as medicine and nutrition, and doctors are becoming more integrative. But, when this happened, and in different parts of the world, this is still the case, right? Different parts of our country, even still the case, from a healing perspective, they don't understand how important food is. So when my daddy was going through that journey, and my mom too, it was like, okay, I just need protein, so I'm just going to eat this one piece of boiled bland meat, or something. And I realized it was so important that you feed all the senses, and at the same time, so many limitations to what people can have when they're not well. Fast forward, my sister ended up having, and at first we didn't realize, but she has a gluten allergy, which is much more, intense than a gluten intolerance. I personally I'm lactose intolerant. And so I started challenging myself to create recipes that met the needs of people that had, quote, restrictions, which I don't want to call restrictions, because they're just different dietary, alignments, preferences. And so I had to create foods that were still, didn't make you feel like you were missing out. You didn't feel like you're being restricted. And that's kind of how I began my journey as a chef, was taking the techniques that I learned and shifting it into a space where there wasn't a lot of love and support. And then moving into the now, I think that really, like, wanting to put together, like wanting to create culinary alchemy on a plate, wanting to bring the magic of the nutritional value of food, but also the energetic vibrational value of food, and putting it together. It really allows me to create things that are bright and beautiful, because that's what Mother Nature gave us, and I'm always talking about trying to eat as many colors as possible and trying to eat the rainbow. I mean, it's a great catchphrase, but there's a reason for it. There's a reason behind the science of it with all the phytonutrients, but also the energetic aspect of it, and how you're really nourishing your whole body. So I don't know. I can't take that much credit. I feel like Mother Nature is the reason why we get to be so beautiful and playful and colorful with our recipes. And if you think about it, we're working with the same things. It's not like we're discovering all these new varieties of, unless they're modified, which we try not to do, right? New varieties of different produce. It's been there. It's been there for a long time. We just get to get creative with like, oh, how are we going to put these things together? And I'm also very much about texture and flavor layering. So when I look at a flavor profile, I want to have different layers of flavors, and I like to have different layers of textures. So I hope that answers it.
I'm never going to forget Eat the Rainbow. I'm never going to forget that now. I was speaking to Dr. Josh Axe.
Yes.
Last year, amazing practitioner, and he was.
Yes.
I've got his book, his new book down there.
Ancient Remedies, yeah.
Ancient Remedies, and he was actually talking about during our conversation how we have been given food that looks like our organs, so we should be eating more of that. Like walnuts look like our brains, so we should be eating that. Grapes look like our testicles, and we should. For men, we should eat more of that, and some other things as well that it was escaping my mind. But it's so true, like how food not just affects our organs, but every other part of our health. And I think we've become so, I guess it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I want to see more health food become less expensive as the junk food.
Yes.
And what I'm curious about is, just real quick, do you see this ever happening in the future?
I do actually. If you look at the cost of something that was organic, the cost and availability of something that was organic, say 10 years ago, or maybe not even 10 years ago, let's say even 5 years ago, that's changed very much so over the course of the years, because like organic seemed almost boutique, and elitist in a lot of ways years ago. But more and more farms are becoming organic. People see the value in having an heirloom product and an organic product. And now there's so much more science and information about why that's important, how it affects our health, how it affects the soil, how it affects the longevity of our purpose when it comes to growing good food and why we're even doing it. And so I think because of that, like as more information and awareness comes out, people are more apt to support that process. So I do, I think that the marketing, the price markup based on marketing is going to dwindle down over time, because we've already seen it. I'm not sure. I don't think there's Trader Joe's in Australia. But for all the US listeners, there's something called Trader Joe's here. And, they make organic, non-GMO, they make all these products very, very, very affordable for people. And there's locations kind of everywhere. So you do have, the markups and maybe higher priced markets and grocery stores. But then you also have that available in other stores. And I think also there's so much more awareness about regenerative farming, about soil health, about really supporting our farmers. And I think the more support we give our farmers, especially our local farmers, the more they can make the products affordable to, the community. So I do, maybe it's optimistic thinking, but I do, just because I've already seen that trend. And hopefully it'll speed up a little bit. I'd like it to be faster so that eating healthy is something that's completely democratized. It's a normal for everybody. It's not something just for people who can afford it. And I think that at least in the US, with all these big companies, they're definitely making shifts. We see that in the plant-based space. So, all these companies that have been traditionally very, very meat focused are now creating plant-based options, because it's what, as a society, there's a demand for it now, so they have to supply. So even if it's not, these companies and corporations, that we as a society, we're the ones that are going to to make them make that shift and make that available.
I don't know what it's like over in the States, but McDonald's has tried to introduce all these health options.
Yeah.
Like they get like the bodybuilders protein for the end and things like that. They've got like salads now.
Yeah.
I see just popping up everywhere. But it's funny because when you mentioned the word organic, like back in the day, we used to laugh at it. And even the movie Cars made a reference of it, like the hippie car, like organic, man, like that sort of vibe. So I think now we've sort of tried to remove that hippie stigma that is associated with the word organic to something that is actually beneficial for us. Like it is good for us. So I'm glad that you're optimistic that it is going to change. I hope that it changes soon because I love my organic food and the prices are just absolutely ludicrous here in Australia.
Yeah.
But
anyway. I hope to see that change as well. I mean, because from travels, I know even in Europe, a lot of things just are organic naturally, but just in different parts of the world, it's marked up. But again, I think, there's a huge marketing markup on that. The cost of goods can be more, but it also, again, depends where you're sourcing from. And, if we support the farmers and encourage them to make that switch and not make certifications for it being, there's so much politics behind that. And, there's so many hoops that people have to jump through that maybe aren't necessary. So, yeah.
I have to agree with you on that. Now, I've probably taken up far too much of your time, but I've really enjoyed the conversation. I could talk to you for ages. My final question for you, if you don't mind, this is my all-time favorite one. So it's a hypothetical. I want you to imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. Your friends have all decided to put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Don't ask me how in the world they got it all. We'll call it magic for the sake of an argument. They've been able to put it together and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
Wow. That's a great question. Wow. I got to really think about this for a second. Well, I actually would want, I would like for that film to start with the journey of me being a little girl, because there's such a profound power and innocence and purity that children have that I feel, animals have as well. Like they're healers. And it's because we haven't let the noise in yet. And I'd want to show that journey of how, from this pure space of like joy and confidence in being good with being me, that somehow that shifted a little bit as I went to school and started having these other noises come in. I questioned my self-worth. I had self-confidence issues, just all of that. I really would like to show that journey, with all the happy moments, but then the sad ones too, to show that like you go through this journey and you end up back in a space where you are good with who you are. You're kind of back to this space of being, and that's the journey of life, right? To come back into a space, whether or not you hit it when you're 100 or when you're 25 or when you're 45, at any point, it's the perfect point, but that when you're at the end of your life, you realize that you kind of went back through that journey to get to this place of peace and joy and just being empowered and strong about your thoughts and your love for yourself and those around you, and that kind of appreciation for the simple things, because that's what I've seen, when someone who is at, these beautiful senior citizens, my grandma was so dear to my heart, and just watching, people say that people get to that point and they're almost childlike again. But why is that a negative thing? Let's think about all the beautiful things from being childlike. And so I would love to see that journey, because I want to show the pain points and how we get back to the joy and all the moments of laughter. I want it to be more moments of laughter than anything else, while also still showing those handful of like pain points to see like, this is the journey of life, right? We're all on it. And so if you take a step back and you realize, well, I'm just going to kind of get back to like where I started, it gives you a completely different set of lenses for where you're at right now, whether you're in a beautiful place or where you're in a struggling place, or whether or not you're in a dark place, right? It just gives you a different set of lens when you have that perspective. If you could think about, when I'm 100, what's going to matter? Is this going to matter? Wait, okay, this does this? You know what I mean? So again, super long answer to your question, but yeah.
Absolutely love it. I feel like that is a great place to sort of leave it. But where can people find you, Serena, connect with you and learn more about you?
Okay, so Instagram is pretty much our largest platform. That's Chef Serena Poon. So you can go there. You can go to my website. It's serenaloves.com. But, I think all my socials are Chef Serena Poon, except for Clubhouse. That one is just Serena Poon, no chef in front of it. But, you can find me, all my socials there. And on Instagram, I'm probably most active in terms of responding to direct messages. So that's where you can find me.
I love it. Serena, thank you so much for your time today, for sharing your energy, your enthusiasm, the whole thing on the Story Box podcast today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure. It's so much fun chatting.